thing have? How was it stationed? Where was the front part? We got so many details of this because Jose Padilla has a photographic memory. He can tell you the day, the Thursday or Wednesday it happened in 1945.
It also rained that day. It rained
that day. Yeah. I can't remember any part of my childhood. I was born the same year. No part of my childhood, nothing. This guy, I have never seen a man with a memory like your uncle. He can name the people. He can name where they came from. Isn't that amazing? Oh, and all we do is ask a question. He knows it already, and but to know even all the details of, it must have been something that he never forgot. I can understand that part. But he could describe as if it was yesterday the whole entire scene. How many times have we been there with him? Never changed his story. And neither has Remy. Exactly the same details. So whatever they lived it apart. I mean, they lived apart for many years. They have the same story. I never had them in the same room, never. But they have the very same case.
You know, I'm surprised and disappointed by the reaction so far. It's going to change, but the reaction so far of our colleagues in doing UFO research, because they said, you know, the first reaction was, well, what do you expect? I mean, two kids telling you a story, and they have no idea of the depth of the story, of Sabrina's story, of what happened to that family, what happened in that environment. I think the fence was cut to the size of, of a big 18-wheeler. There is no question about that. A new road was plowed. It took a couple of days for the Army to build that road that would support that kind of truck all the way to where the avocado was lying. And then when I spoke to Jose, we've had many sort of private conversations with him, and we've become friends, and I'm proud of that. And I told him, you use the word, you say you wanted this thing from inside. Why did you want the thing from inside? And he said, I wanted a souvenir. Souvenir is a French word. What is it doing in the middle of New Mexico where people speak English or Spanish, okay? And so I asked him that, and he was very serious, and he said, every family around here had lost someone, either, in the Pacific or in Germany or in, the invasion of France, and so on. And it was very emotional. It was very important to have some object that had belonged to them. It could be their glasses. It could be a pen. It could be, anything that had belonged to them that we could remember them by, other than the flag that the United States would give you, after they buried them. And to me, that's the kind of thing that makes you stop. This is not just another UFO story, okay? This comes from the sky, 4 weeks after the atom bomb, okay? This is an event that changes the course of human history. This is not your ordinary UFO crash. This is not even Roswell. As important as Roswell is, Roswell has become more important to me because of this case, okay? But this case is unique because we have the complete testimony of an event that came at this particular point of history with a message. And what we need to do and what we can do, thanks to you and thanks to your family, we can begin to decipher that message.
Okay.
Thank you. And thank you, Sabrina. Thank you very much.
I can see you have a question in the front, but I don't. I can't see anybody. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we could. Do you want to do about 10 minutes of questions?
Maybe we can take questions later.
Yeah. because, well, we have to leave the ballroom, but, I mean, Dawn, is it, yeah, go ahead. The beings, what happened?
You want to mic on there?
We don't know.
Hold for the mic.
What happened to the beings?
Well, I think after the government came there after a week, they had planned this very carefully. At the same time, they were planning to come and clean that up. They also were making a road to take it away.
No, they don't know what happened to the beings.
And of course, I understand that
We
there
have
was a
no
rumor,
idea. We don't know. However, what Jacques didn't finish talking about is where we think the craft went and why we haven't heard about it, which is the Atomic Energy Commission files, if you
Yeah.
want to talk about that. And it wouldn't go in Blue Book. It would, in fact, Remy told me that because he had helped to elect Dixie Lee, who was the governor of Washington State, to a governorship, she let him see that file, which was in the files of the Atomic Energy Commission, which has a higher clearance than anything in the Air Force or anything else. So nobody's ever going to get to see that file. And it was a thank you for electing her, I think he said.
What I've tried to do in the book was, my background is really in information science, so I look for patterns in things, and in the book you'll find two other cases compared in the context of the New Mexico case of 1945. The case in Valençol in France, in the Alps, and the case in Socorro, which happened some years later, but was really a turning point in the study of UFOs for the Air Force and for Dr. Hynek. The landing in Socorro, where also there are some materials that remain, okay? So in all three of those cases, remember Socorro and Valençol are official cases of the government of France. In the case of Valençol, 5 different agencies of the French government investigated the case, okay? There were traces on the ground, and so on. Same thing in Socorro. In Socorro, it was investigated by the local police, the FBI that happened to be there. They didn't come for that, but they happened to be there first on the scene, and they secured the traces. So there is an FBI report, okay, about Socorro. And then the army from White Sands, because they thought it might be one of their prototypes that had was gone off course and landed south of Socorro in this open land. So in all three cases, the object is not a flying saucer. It's an oval shaped. It's egg-shaped. It's about the size of a large truck. It lands on either a tripod or a 4-leg landing gear, leaving traces. And by the way, the landing gear at Socorro is extremely interesting. You'll see the analysis in the book. We didn't have anything like it. I mean, the Army tried to say, well, maybe it's a prototype for a moon lander, but there is no way you could account for that as a moon lander. And we know that because now we've built the moon lander, and it doesn't look anything like it, and you couldn't be. But also, in all three cases, the beings are the same. So this is not the story that two little kids invented in New Mexico, okay? The beings in all three cases, in France and in Socorro, the French case is in 1965, 20 years later. The beings are short, about the size of a 10-year-old kid. They have 2 eyes, a nose, and a small mouth. They have a relatively large head with respect to the shoulders, and they breathe our air. They don't have a mask. They don't have a helmet. Their eyes communicate with the witness. Okay, there is a form of communication that you could call psychic communication with the witness. In the case, I know the witness in Valençol quite well. I've gone there. I've spoken to the people around there, and I've spoken to the main witness. very articulate, very serious man, a prominent citizen of the community, respected by the police, actually the gendarmes, and by the French authorities when they interviewed him, because he was a hero in the resistance. You know, he had some of the heaviest fighting in Europe before the Normandy landing took place in the Alps, where the French commandos were fighting the German divisions in the mountains. So he was somebody that they would take seriously. This was not a kid. And what he describes in terms of a being and the impression from them is what I find in the transcripts that Paola recorded with Remy and with Jose. So you have a pattern there of three of the most important cases in the history of the UFO phenomenon.
And we don't know, since they weren't there, you know, we would be guessing to give you an answer on. We don't know what happened to them.
Well, if I may tell the gentleman this, you know, we didn't have an Area 51 then. There was no Area 51 then when that happened. So they didn't take them there, but rumors are that they took them to a hangar somewhere out in White Sands, New Mexico, where they took the craft away in that direction. But we don't know what became of that.
That's just a guess. Nobody knows.
Yeah, that's what they
weren't there anymore when they came back, the father and Apodaca. We just don't know. They were alive when the little boys saw them. We don't know if they were really hurt. They were making that squealing sound. We just see, when you do this, and this has happened to me so many times, I can't guess. I just give you the facts that they told me. Okay, they made this sound. They look like this. We have no idea what they wanted. But the thing that's interesting for me, and when I watch Taimi's presentation, is what we don't do is put it in the context of history. It happened on the day that the guy signed a paper. It happened on the day that they exploded the atomic bomb. Or I always say when I do interviews, these things are not on vacation. It's a decisive event that happens as a message for a reason around a historical fact. And what I enjoyed about Jacques, I could never have written a book with the background, and I did read all the history books he read around the capitulation of Japan. You don't know what the real story was. I keep saying, did we have to explode Nagasaki and Hiroshima? Did we have to do that to stop the war? Did we have to do that? In the book, you're going to find out we really didn't have to do that, because they were going to surrender anyway. Or they were getting ready to surrender. For me, that was a shocker. So what happens? We kill all those people, and not only that, but the idea that it was not a test, and Jacques writes about that. Because he said, Paula, it was not a test. And I said, well, what was it then? It was a real bomb in New Mexico. That was just as big as Nagasaki and more powerful, because they learned from that the fallout was worse, so they did it from the air where the fallout would be less. So who got the brunt of that? Were the people in New Mexico. You know how serious that is? What a waste that was. I mean, of course, there's a reason why we throw atomic bombs, and I had done work in Italy. In fact, I got in trouble for this. I had some real bad threats about this, but right after that, we started testing the H-bomb in the Pacific. And there was 800 H-bomb tests done on the island of Fangatofa in the Bikini. 800. They killed all the coral, all the fish, and everything. This is H-bomb. It's not A-bomb. It's more powerful than the A-bomb. And the guy that gave me the testimony, I had all kinds of problems. They broke into my house. They took the film footage. They took $20,000 worth of things. They jumped over the balconies in Rome to get into my house. This guy Guy Andronique, that was part of the H-bomb testing, he told me that when they were testing the H-bomb and they killed all the 3 feet of dead fish on the runway, 3 feet of dead fish. When they were testing this, he said that they had UFOs flying over all the time. They did nothing except watch. The UFOs did nothing except watch. I'm thinking this is happening in the Pacific after the A-bomb, which is the atomic bomb. Then we go and we do the H-bomb test. That was the French that did that, though. The Indians did it too. America did it near Argentina. But are we insane? 800? Can't you do 2? Guy Andronique told me they had done 800 tests. More than the A-bomb that was as bad as you can imagine. The atomic bomb is, because you see the pictures of the mushroom crowd and so forth, because it's above ground. This was in the water in the Pacific, in the Bikini Atoll. And yes, they did come in and they tried to stop the filming that I was doing on this, but not because of the bomb stuff, but because of the fact all the UFOs did was fly over. It was like what Jaime was saying. We're watching you. Are you insane out of your minds? That kind of thing. If there was hostile, they would have done away with everybody on the Bikini Atoll. It was Greenpeace that stopped that from happening. So, you know, these are things that we need to put together in the area of history. And I love the book because Jacques did the background. My part was just the interviews. But he put together the whole context of a very important story. And if you read it, know that it should go in your library as a history book, not a UFO book, necessarily.
Thank you.
Hello? May I ask a question?
Paola?
Is there time for one more question?
One question.
Just one more. Go ahead.
We can take questions later.
No, there's just one more, and then I'm gonna leave.
Thank you for the book. I read the book, and I have a question about the tower, the radio tower.
Asking a question about the radio tower.
Okay, but
Yes, sir. There were. It
May I
turns out
ask
there
my
were
question?
3 towers outside the White Sands fence itself. White Sands is very, very large. It's an enormous territory. They never used it after that for another atomic test. They moved to Nevada. They moved here. But just outside the main base, there were 3 towers controlling simply the aerial traffic, both civilian and military, vectoring the aircraft around the area. Immediately to the north of your land, there is a cliff, and there is the terrain goes up to a series of mountains. So, and remember, the plane itself is at 2,000 feet altitude. So the atmosphere is rather thin and so on, and they have, they had fairly frequent accidents. So the towers were not serving a military purpose. The towers were not serving a military purpose. They were just handling the traffic around the area. But it was important to them to find out why the North Tower was not communicating anymore. But that certainly gives you, a point of reference to the fact that something had in fact happened at that particular place.
He had a question about the tower, though. What is it? Yeah. It's hit the tower.
But there was no discussion about it being replaced or being repaired.
The tower itself?
Yeah.
No. Well, this was, the war was over. The treaty with Japan had been signed two days before, and that tower was taken down eventually. The tower was not used after that. They replaced it with a different system. So, but thank you for your question.
Thank you very much.